All right, guys, I got something interesting in store for you guys. If you actually listen to what I have to say and you have an opinion, please give me your opinion on not only on the facts but what you think about my topic. Okay, so let me tickle your brain and give me the feedback. I'm interested. If you're somebody who thinks logically and you have I want to know your perception on life. Like, what's your reality? Anyway, getting to what I was talking about, it's optimism versus pessimism, right? What which actually the one that you pick? What's good for you? What's the best option, right? And my answer is neither one. Not one on its own. You need both. The problem with being too optimistic, when someone's overly optimistic, they start making risky, impulsive choices. Why do you think so? Well, in my opinion, because they believe it's just going to work out. They think, if I don't stay positive, life's going to be hard anyway. So they stop weighing the actual odds. Optimism stops being a mindset and starts being a blindfold. And they use that as a coping mechanism to make bad decisions. Well, we can spend the rest of the money on lottery because we're going to be fine. Everything always works out. Everything always does, right? And this isn't just my opinion. There's actual science behind it. It's called optimism bias. And the research behind it is the researcher, Dr. Tali Sharut. And she's a cognitive neuroscientist at the University of London College. Her landmark paper, simply titled The Optimism Bias. It was published in the journal the journal Current Biology back in December of 2011. Here's what she actually found. She ran studies where people predicted the odds of different life events happening to them. Things like getting divorced, being in a car accident, getting cancer, or on the flip side, positive things like landing a great job. And over, healthy people consistently overestimated how likely good things were to happen to them and underestimated how likely bad things were. Even the real objective odds, even though, the real odds were actually equal across the board. This doctor's brain imaging work also showed up in a significant region of the brain, and it's consistent across cultures and even shows up in other species. Here's the part that really matters for what we're talking about, though. This is bias. Oh, okay. This bias is strongest in a safe environment. When the doctor and other researchers looked at real danger, that bias shrinks because your brain still needs you to accurately judge threats to survive. And that's a primal thing that we have in our brain. So the takeaway isn't that optimism is bad. It's that when you're making a real decision, one with actual risk attached, your brain may already be quietly downloading the odds of it going wrong, whether you notice it or not. That's not a feeling. That's a documented, replicated pattern in the research. See, moving through life purely on optimism without checking that bias against reality isn't just a personality flaw. It's your own brain working against your judgment. And see, now we got to talk about pessimism, right? Because there's a problem with being on too far on each side. Someone who's overly pessimistic gets stuck in the opposite trap. They won't try anything that feels even a little risky because this is how it always turns out, or stuff always goes wrong. You know the one, I'm not sharing my idea. Everyone's going to hate it anyway. That mindset doesn't protect you. It just keeps you small. Not only does it keep you small, but it also doesn't allow you to explore your creative capabilities because you're too worried about being judged. So you don't want to take even the littlest risk. And to me, that's a little excessive. But anyway, on to my next topic. I'm going to give you guys an example that really will hopefully make it touch a little more base for you. So I thought about shampoo and conditioner, right? You can't just use shampoo. I mean, you can, but shampoo alone strips away the dirt and the grime, and it dries your hair out in the process. Conditioner is what rehydrates your hair and keeps it healthy. You need both. It's not about picking a side. It's about finding the right amount of each for what your hair is needing. Because even if you think about it, there are even shampoos that have conditioner in them because it is something that is supposed to be after a shampoo. Outlook works the same way. Use optimism the way you'd use shampoo. Now when it's actually needed, when the situation calls for it, not more, not less, the right amount. So now I'm going to give you a real example, right? Say I had a job interview. The interviewer was engaging, the conversation flowed. She even mentioned that there's room for me to grow in the company. She smiled at me a lot, and I could just feel by the vibe that she was digging me as an employee or a person. Like our personalities were linking as employees. You know what I'm saying? So based on that, I believed I'm gonna get that job, and if I work hard, maybe even get promoted down the line. That's optimism, but it's not baseless. It's built on something real. How the interaction actually went, the valid facts that you had, right? Or not facts, or I can't say facts, but the information you got from what you perceived. Now, would I go buy a new suit for the job before she's even called me back? Probably not. And that's the line. That's where optimism can tip into getting ahead of yourself. Had my personality clashed with hers in that room, I might not have gotten the offer at all, no matter how positive I felt walking in. So here is the baseline, what I'm trying to link it all to, right? This is what it really is about. So I'm gonna try to land this whole segment, right? You need both sides, guys. The key is understanding how your outlook shapes the choices you actually make. Once you get that, you start weighing things with logic and validity, not just vibes. And honestly, that's the most successful outlook you can have. Have I been through stuff that made me want to write everything off as bad? Oh, most definitely. But now I try to be optimistic when it's earned and cautious or pessimistic when the situation actually calls for caution. Here's a distinction people miss though. Hope is not the same thing as optimism. I can look at a situation, be fully pessimistic about the odds. Like logically, I know this probably won't work, and still hope it works out anyway. Because hope doesn't require belief that something's likely, it's just the wish that it does. You can hold both at once. Clear eyed about reality. You know what you're perceiving. You know the facts. It's probably going to happen. But you're hoping for the best. Bottom line, for things you're trying to accomplish, things within your control, lead with logic first. Ask yourself, how likely is this outcome? Realistically, let your outcome be proportionate to the actual reasoning, not just the feeling. And here's another thought I had. So it's like building a house, right? You need a good foundation. So your foundation, when you're building your house of decision making, it's going to be the foundation has to be logic, because if it's anything else, that house is going to fall. So we're going to build our foundation on logic, and then everything else can fall into place. For things outside of your control, like whether a sick pet is going to pull through, you're allowed to hope for the best, even when the odds aren't in your favor. That's not the same as being irrationally optimistic about a decision you're making. One is hope in the face of reality. The other is ignoring reality altogether. At the end of the day, have whatever outlook helps you keep going, but build your outlooks and your decisions on your actual understanding of what's going on, not just a feeling you're attached to. And here's the one thing you can always count on, no matter what: Your life will always go on. That's facts. It doesn't change based on how you feel about things. What you can actually influence are the things within your control. Learn to put your energy there instead of into the feeling itself. It is what makes you a successful, content person. See, if you're moving off of your feelings, I feel like this is a good decision, I feel like this is a bad decision, I'm telling you right now, you're never going to make the right decision. You have to base your decisions, or this is my opinion. I base my decisions off of logic and perception, things I can prove, for things I know, like premises based off the facts, or not, well, not technically facts, or based off of the information that I've gathered, right? Information rather than a feeling. I need something that's gonna lean me one way or the other, because at the end of the day, and I say this a lot, the math does not lie. Percentages, odds, that never is going to lie. That's never going to change. So if you focus on the math, the something that's always going to remain the same, and you can prove, you can always pick the most beneficial decision and the choices you make. And that doesn't mean that, those are the decisions you want to make. And that's where you got to have an interior decision. Do I want to make the right choice? Because I sometimes make the wrong choice. I know I'm making the wrong choice, but I'll do it anyway. So if you want to be successful, and all you have to do is always make the most beneficial choice in your life, because that's all life really is. Anyway, if you listened to this all the way through, I love you. You're down to earth. You got a big you got a big mind. Logistically, you got logic, man. And whoever this is, keep that logic. Don't let it ever stop. Don't stop questioning life, man. Life is always going to give you questions and ask you questions, and you're going to have to make decisions. So I'm also dropping a theoretical paper on. I'll actually tell you what it's about. It's literally going to be called "The Power of Choice." And it's going to be a deep dive into how a choice can really influence everything in your life, and how strong is a choice or a decision, right? How strong are decisions in your life, and are they that important? We're going to find out, because I'm telling you guys, I have a lot to talk about with this topic, and it's actually very interesting because a lot of people don't have the same perceptions I do. So if you think my perception's off, please don't hesitate to say something, because I want a debate. I don't mind like viewing it from your perspective. I'm going to hear you out and I'll read your comment. Have a good day.